Number one takeaway from Jesse was to be unrealistic, and it's a way that I've lived my life anyhow. And in fact, today I was emailing back and forth. Gosh, you know what? I'm going to share this anyway. We're fully transparent here, but I was emailing back and forth with my editor from my publisher for my book Man Up, right? And they sent us 200 copies of the advanced books, you know, that says, hey, this is
galley proof.
Yeah, galley proof, exactly. It hasn't been completely proofed yet. And immediately I found a typo on the very back page in the Lewis House testimonial.
Got it.
And of course, in the very first page, in the preface, I found a typo, and that didn't sit well with me. So I said, hey, just change these two and send me another 200 copies. I said, no, we don't do it that way. And I said, well, do it. I want it that way because I'm very specific in how I want things. And she goes, well, it's gonna take 3 weeks. I said, I need it faster. She goes, I need to only give you a realistic timeline. And I sent her a long email, very passionate email, and I said, Jennifer, I need you to be unrealistic in your expectations because right now, at this very moment, there's a rocket with a Tesla being shipped off to Mars. And I said, Elon Musk is unrealistic in his expectations of putting a Tesla automobile on the planet Mars. And so if he could do that, you can send me another 200 copies. Where does that come from, right? So mom and dad raised us, and they lived at a slower time, and they were raised by their mom and dad who lived even at a slower time. Where
That came from modest means.
Yeah, modest means. And of course, their mom and dad came from the Great Depression when, well, what's realistic? I mean, realistic is having shoes where your toes are sticking out. Realistic is having a piece of meat that big where their family 6 have to eat. So their idealisms of realism is different than now with technology and with opportunities and with the ability to move faster. And so we have to stop thinking the old-fashioned way of what mom and dad in the school system taught us. Why be realistic? Why not be unrealistic? Why not be unreasonable in your expectations so that you can achieve more, do more in this limited amount of 100 years or so that we have of life? Those of you watching and listening to this, if you don't know Jesse Itzler, the guy's a nut. For one, he's never been on a private jet, and the first time he sees one, he turns to his buddy and he goes, and I think they were in their early 30s or late 20s. He goes, we need to start a private jet company so we can be on these things.
Right.
And they literally pitch it to
Marquis Jet.
Marquis Jet.
They were Marquis Jets.
They were,
Net Jets. Warren Buffett's Net Jets.
Exactly. And it became Marquis Jets, and it later was sold back to Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And then the guy goes and helps start Zico coconut water and sells it to Coca-Cola. So when you think about two big empires that he's built and sold, it's because he thinks at an unrealistic level. Now, people around him probably think he's a fool, he's crazy, he's an idealist, but who gets the last laugh?
Yeah.
You know what? Ed Milet is a very special person because the way he tells a story is unlike any other way. And the way he told me at the very end, the last thing I asked him was, you know, how do you want your life to look? He goes, look, when I die and I go to heaven, he goes, the last thing I want to happen is for God to go, these are the expectations that I had you at. This is where I wanted you to become, but you were far from ever reaching your fullest potential. So he says, I have the obligation to strive more, take more risks, put in more effort to become the man, the leader, the entrepreneur, the visionary, the parent, the father, the spouse that I'm going to be when I die, right?
Because chasing the best version of yourself every
absolutely.
day.
I thought that was profound, man, because no one, if you start thinking of that, like what if you meet your maker and he goes, this is the blueprint I had of you, but you only got this close. I have actually stolen this phrase from him because I think he so eloquently shared it on the Empire podcast show when I interviewed him, and that was singularity of focus.
Got it.
Right? It is so important to have singularity of focus. In other words, I think it wasn't until the early 1900s that the word priority became priorities, or maybe it was 1400s, whatever it was. You only had one priority, and today when we talk about it, we go, hey, Craig, what are your priorities?
What are your top 3 priorities for the next 30 minutes?
And so often we focus on so many things, right? We focus on so many priorities. When you look at focus, what is focus? To come together in clarity, narrow focus. And singularity of focus, he says, was a single factor that helped take his company to 10x in 5 years, from 300 million to 3 billion in sales, and then he sold it. So, hey, if that works for him, it's going to work for anybody. That really is a mindset that can be developed, by the way. I mean, this episode is all about a mindset. Well, singularity of focus is a discipline. Look, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's should I write a book, should I start a blog? There's many priorities, but singularity of focus says, commit to one thing and do it better than anybody else, and that's a discipline. Same thing with the numbers and the systems that he has.
Yeah.
Anyone can develop that skill, and if you don't want to do it yourself in the long term, you'll ultimately hire someone, but it's the mindset of, I have to run my business by the numbers and systems versus anything else. Man, I think where people are thinking too small is the amount of risk that they should take. I think people are trying to play it too safe. They're still bubble wrapping things. They're bubble wrapping their lives. They're putting leaving the training wheels on a little too long, and they're trying to alleviate risk, but in the process, what they're doing is they're constantly kicking the can of success down the road if they ever get to it. I say take the risks now, because there's never been a time in history that you could recover faster than today.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you and I could lose it all, but just knowing what we know, we can regain faster than we got it 15 years ago, right? Because we have more resources and access to us than ever before. So that's where the small thinking comes in today, is you're not taking fast enough and big enough risks.